So I did that. I waited, I think, 36 hours. And then at that time, it was in the morning. I took the pills and I was expecting, maybe a little cramping, whatever it was, but it was, and I don't want to say this to like really scare anyone. I just really want to be honest about what I personally experienced. The pain of it was really quite bad.
Hello, and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I am so glad you joined us today because we have another powerful podcast for you, and we're so happy that you're tuning in to listen in. I want to introduce my excellent, wonderful, incredible co host, Mary Browning. And Mary, thank you for joining me again today on More to the Story. And we missed you last week.
Well, it's good to see you, Molly. I'm glad to be on board.
Well, we have a very special guest, and we will introduce her in a minute. But first, I want you to give us our little disclaimer.
Yes. Yes, we're glad you're listening with us today. We do want you to know that there will be some adult content as this will be about abortion. So if there are children near or you need to take some measures because it's not appropriate for you to listen out loud right now, then we just invite you to do that. And we thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Mary. And we do want to let our listeners know too, if you're a man or a woman who's experienced abortion in your past and maybe you haven't gone through healing, you haven't dealt with it, this could be very triggering for you. We don't want you to turn it off. We want you to listen because we want you to know that there's hope and healing after abortion and that you're not suffering alone and that, God does save, deliver, and heal. So we want you to hang in there with us, and we'll have a helpline number for you across the screen during the show that you can call to get some help and support. So I also not want to forget to mention my incredible sponsor, Dr. Stephen Hotze with the Hotze Health and Wellness Clinic. He sponsors our show, and we really appreciate that. So we're going to introduce our very special guest today, and we tried to get her on. I believe it was last week. We had some technical difficulties, and so we're so thankful that she's able to join us again today. And her name is Christine. And Christine is going, well, let me say hi to Christine and welcome to the podcast.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for coming on and for your willingness to share your story. We know it's not easy to share our stories, but we do know that it's so important that we use our stories to educate those who might not know about how abortion hurts women or how the abortion industry operates. And like I said earlier, let people know that there is hope and healing after abortion, and to comfort those who may be hurting, and then to save lives too. We want to keep women and girls from going through this experience. I mean, there's nothing more traumatic than having an abortion that lasts a lifetime. So Christine, I've got a little list of questions here. So what tell me, what transpired after your pregnancy or what led up to your pregnancy?
Sure. I was in a long-term relationship with someone, and I was already feeling towards the end of that relationship that it wasn't working out. It wasn't the right situation for me. And I was struggling with how to approach that. And so we were, we had these plans for the summer, and just, one evening, around that time that I was thinking about, how am I going to end things with this person. It was right before a trip that we were taking. I had said to a friend, all these weird things were happening to my body. I felt sensitive and sore, and I, hadn't been paying attention to when I'd had my period. And so I took a pregnancy test, and I told myself, oh, this is just what happens. You psych yourself out and whatever, all those things that we try to do to calm ourselves down. And it came out a positive. So I was pregnant. And really the best way I could describe what happened after that was I just really panicked. I don't know why. I wasn't expecting that this outcome could happen, but I told myself, I'm just psyching myself out. And I think maybe just being so unprepared for that really caused me to just really shut down.
So what did you do after that? What's your thought process? Because this is kind of normal when a lot of women find out they're pregnant,
Right.
Especially when they're not planning, or,
Right.
How did you come to
Yes.
making that, decision to have an abortion?
Let me think back to it. Yeah. I think my first reaction was I just kind of sat on my couch and just like stared straight ahead and was like, breathe. And what's actually kind of upsetting to think about, looking like really taking a minute to look back, is there really was a big part of me that was actually happy about it, because I always wanted to be a mother my whole life. Since I was like 12 years old, I was like, Mom, I was 12, I was in 6th grade. Everyone was doing their hair and nail polish and interested in boys. And I was like, I want a baby doll that I can like really actually feed and like make it seem like it's really my baby. I think this is awesome. Like I want to be a mom. And my mom had just had my youngest brother. So it was relevant. And so, yeah, there was that part of me that thought, oh, it's, and it's kind of upsetting to even talk about now, but it was kind of like, oh, this is finally happening for me. One thing I would love to talk about is that I understand, from what I understand, because I was looking this up after all of this transpired, it's my understanding that women who want access to this medication, you absolutely have to have a consultation with a medical professional, whether that's in person in an office or online through a telehealth, a video phone call, whatever. That is my understanding. But what happened to me was I was very easily able to order the pills online, and I didn't speak to a soul. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I filled out a quick survey. I was nervous for that consultation. Like, oh, what is this medical professional going to tell me? What can I expect? Like, I know the literature online says this. Are they going to be upset? Are they going to be this? Are they going to be that? No one. It was so easy.
Well, Christine, you are correct that the FDA protocol does require a medical, at least a telemed consult with a medical professional. It doesn't have to be a doctor, but you're right about that. The way the drug has been approved does require that protocol. But what you're telling us is you were just easily able to access the drug, even though the FDA protocol was not, you didn't follow that.
Right. And the FDA had actually removed all those protocols. They have removed those safety requirements. They removed the reporting requirements. It's making it so easy for you and others to get these drugs without seeing a doctor and without having a pregnancy test run or an ultrasound to try to determine how far along you really are.
Right.
And Mary, what are the statistics about, women being wrong on their gestational?
Yes. One of the things that I learned, Christine, because I was wrong about the gestational age of my baby when I went for my abortion. And what I've learned is 50% of women are wrong about the gestational age. And it's well known, at least now, that half of us don't exactly know. I know when you were saying you hadn't really paid attention, but you shouldn't have been surprised you were pregnant. I can completely identify with that because I was the same experience. So thank you for sharing that. But yeah, half of us are wrong.
And usually when we're wrong, it's because we're further along than we think we are. It's not that we're less further along. We are further along in our pregnancy than we think we are. So now you got the pills, you ordered the pills, you just filled out a little questionnaire or something. you got these drugs in the mail.
Mhm.
And what happened after that? It's
Sure. I took the medication I got said to take one pill at first, and then to wait either 24 to 48 hours after to take a series of additional pills. I think it was, I want to say 4 pills that 24 to 48 hours afterward. So I did that. I waited, I think, 36 hours. And then at that time, it was in the morning. I took the pills and I was expecting, maybe a little cramping, whatever it was, but it was, and I don't want to say this to like really scare anyone. I just really want to be honest about what I personally experienced. The pain of it was really quite bad. I was very sore. I was really cramping. It was, really, really, really painful. I was like, oh dear, is this normal? Is this okay? And then, I started to blood was coming out of my body, and it was very, very, it was a lot of blood, at very, short intervals. I didn't have any fever or any nausea or anything like that, but I could just feel internally it was really painful. And I don't know please stop me if what I'm saying is too graphic or not appropriate for what you want on here. But
I think you should be very honest, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
Sure. There was a point, maybe not even a couple of hours, maybe, an hour and a half into it. I went to the bathroom, and I had been wearing pads and just kind of changing them out. And I felt a rush of something come out of my body. And when I went to the bathroom, I took out my pad, and I could see what I thought was some type of like heat bubble, or so I don't know what I thought. I was like, what in the world is that? And it was just it was like kind of like a whitish translucent little form. And what I was seeing, what I thought it was the heartbeat of it. And I know it doesn't really have maybe a formed heartbeat at wherever the baby was at that point. But I really stared at it for like 5 minutes, being like, what? There's no way that I'm seeing this. There is no way that out of the 10 times I just went to the bathroom, that the one time I'm actually checking to make sure everything is like okay and coming out, that I see this. I couldn't believe it. I was heartbroken. I was so heartbroken to see that. And afterwards I was like, there's no way that that's what that was. And so I looked it up online, and it was like, I've heard of people seeing, maybe more developed babies at that point. But from what I saw as a reasonable person, and from what I, kind of looked into after, I know that what I saw was the fetus coming out. And whether it was the heart, the actual heart as an organ as we understand it now or not, there was something alive in there. Well, to my that's what I believe.
That was shocking and traumatizing at that moment, I'm sure. And I don't want to be sensitive to that,
Yeah, it was not just physical. At that moment, physically seeing what was in my body, I immediately, it was like I had come out of this panic or this stupor or this fear, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can I undo this? Is there any way for me I wish I didn't do this. I didn't want this. I don't want this. This is my, this is my baby that I had originally wanted. And so after that, it became emotional pain, and that trauma was really, for me, I would consider that graphic, and that really stuck with me. And that's something that I, still think about every day, of course.
It's hard to get those images out of my mind, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And the sights and the sounds and the smells and even the feelings, even the pain. You might forget, I don't know, you might forget how intense it is, but there was a lot of pain involved, and not just physically, but emotionally as well. So
Right.
those are hard things to overcome, or they don't go away, but
Right.
we learn how to deal with it through healing and
Right.
prayer, you know.
Yeah.
So how long, and you're realizing all of this, you're regretting it. I've had that same experience on an abortion table, and even
Wow.
afterwards, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. And really, though, I didn't see a baby until I had an ultrasound years later, and I thought, wait a minute, they told me it was just a clump of cells.
Yeah.
But I know that the trauma and the feeling of regret and shock hits you right away. So how did you cope from there? I mean, take us to the next stage of, okay, oh my God, I can't undo this. Can't undo it. What did I just do?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I would say right after that, that pain that I was feeling really manifested in my life, like very deeply, very strongly, very instantly. I was really struggling. It was so difficult for me to get out of bed. And I'm a very active, positive, happy person who finds a silver lining in anything, finds a reason, and making a purpose out of things that happen to us. And so I knew very, very quickly, this is not like me. And it got worse and worse, not wanting to talk to anybody about anything. Just constantly, the only thing I could think about for weeks was what I had done, what that meant, especially as a believer. That's really, really, you take that really hard when you do something that you believe is unforgivable. And so I did get, a couple of weeks later, I did get to a point where I thought, you know what, I cannot live like this. I want this to end. I want my brain to stop having these thoughts. I don't want to live with, this decision. And I knew really when I had that thought, when I had accepted that was the thought I was having, that if I did not get help, I was probably not going to allow myself to live with it. I did, thank God I found I think it's the H3 helpline or hotline.
I think it's going across our screen. I think I saw it on there.
Yeah. That was like such a breath of relief. I called that hotline. I think I sent an email first. Someone reached out to me, and I believe the first person I spoke to was a woman. Can I say names here? Is that okay?
Yes.
The first name, yeah.
Yeah. I think the first woman I spoke to was Mindy, and she just was like, just this peace and calm just washed over me. Like, okay, there is someone out there that I'm speaking to who can help me. And it was just that little seed of hope that I did not have. I did not have any hope. I was at rock bottom. I was not having, a positive attitude about it at all. I was desperate for help. And this woman, just speaking to her was wonderful. She gave me resources. She was telling me, there's, just giving me that information of the things she knew. There's these retreats, there's these things, there's, a Bible study that women do, virtually for healing. And it was just, that conversation really saved me. That was, I feel like if I didn't speak to her, if I didn't get someone, I don't know that I don't know if
here today. Yeah. I know where you're coming from. I really do. I've had those thoughts myself. Yeah. Were you going to say something, Mary?
I was just going to say, we're really glad you stayed with it and kept searching and found the number and made the call.
And doing it so quickly, with 13 years that I suffered through all of that and made all these poor decisions and suffered through life. And of course, back in those days, we didn't have the internet and all this kind of stuff. But still, I lived in denial most of those years that it even hurt me. I just kind of tried to suppress it and forget it. But yet everything that I did in my life was a direct result of the trauma that I was going through, and for you to just be so diligent and saying, this is not right. I'm not feeling right. This is not me. Is there some help out there? And wow, that's a testimony in itself.
Yes.
To know that you're not doing okay and that you want help. And listen, there's a lot of you out there that you're not okay. Yeah. You're not the same person you were, before. I don't know how many years it could have been, but you can definitely tell, especially if you had an abortion. This is the way you were prior to your abortion. This is the way you are after your abortion. And if those two things aren't lining up, you're not okay. But you can be okay, right, Christine? I mean, you can be okay. There is help out there. And we have our website down here on the screen. We have phone numbers, but don't wait. don't wait and continue a self-destructive pattern. Get that help. So Christine, tell us what you found online and then what happened after that, after talking to Mindy.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindy was wonderful. She directed me right to the Rachel's Vineyard retreats. And I know that those are happening at different places across the country. So she had suggested, there's one near you, but it's not, she was very, very kind. She said, it's not for a couple of months. Do you feel like you need help right now? Do you feel like you can wait? If you can't wait, there's all these other options. But just having that phone call really did give me the strength to say, okay, I know there's something on the horizon. I know that there's help out there. I was like, listen, it doesn't matter if something works out, that's great. If I can just have something at the end of the line, knowing it's later in the summer or when, early or whatever. So she said, you have all these options, but the one in the Rachel's Vineyard retreat through New Heart of Texas in Houston was the one that she had said, this is the original, or the I think that's what it is. Is it the original one? The first one that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she connected me to Mary Lee, and another wonderful conversation. I was shocked to find out that this retreat, I had looked it up. It was 3 days you would be there. I was shocked to find out that it was at no cost. I would only, being out of state, I would just have to, pay for flights, which was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, that changes everything. That makes it, really possible. And, Mary Lee then connected me, with others who were helping me coordinate. Okay, we have a couple other people flying in. We're going to pick you up from the airport. Do not worry about anything. We're going to drive you. If you need any place, just like you're going to stay at the retreat center. If you come in early, we'll drive you to wherever you're staying the night before. It was just totally seamless. And in being in that position of being worried and traumatized and upset, having that like all kind of being taken care of was such a game changer instead of me worrying about all the details. So it was just even the start of that was amazing.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Christine, but we've had Terry Baxter, who's the director of the H3 Helpline. We've had her on as a guest on our show. We've known her many years prior to her doing the Helpline. And we know Mary Lee very well, too. I've known her for many years. So you were in the right hands. And then, Mary, tell Christine about your recent experience.
I recently went to Rachel's Vineyard in Houston as well.
Wow.
It's been, my son would be 47. So it's been a long, long time. I've gotten some healing along the way, but it was very different to go to an abortion specific recovery program. And I found a lot of healing through that too. And I'm just thankful, Christine, that you were diligent, you stayed with it, and you recognized when you needed help. That's one of the things, I think the reality of the chemical abortion, because it's so real, you're right there with it. It's a little different from those of us that have had surgical abortions, because someone else is performing a procedure and they're taking care of whatever there is, and we don't. I didn't see anything. So I just I am thankful that with this process you at least recognized right away, and you recognized you were in trouble and you got help, because that's the beauty of this. And I thank you that you are telling your experience. There are I've read some of these stories from other women. Yes. And some people equate taking the abortion pills to like taking a Tylenol, like it's, but a Tylenol relieves pain, doesn't invoke pain. And so it's kind of interesting. And I think perhaps for a segment of the population, they may have an easier time, but I've read a number of people's accounts that have had some pretty horrific. I just wondered, when you were telling us about an hour and a half in, the pain was really pretty intense, whether you considered, do I need to go to the ER? Were you wondering, am I going to be okay? Was that going through your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. When I felt that, I thought, okay, there was something online about how the pain could be, I think they even said like severe. But it was just such a small blip compared to everything else they were saying about it that I thought, oh, okay, well, if it was really that bad, they'd put
big letters or something, big red letters across the screen or something. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, no, it definitely did get to that point where I thought, okay, if this is going to go on like this might potentially be a problem that I'm going to have to go to the hospital for.
Yeah. And so you were alone.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. And going through all that. And that's another traumatic experience that's different between the pill and the surgical, and not that we have friends with us and we're having a surgical abortion, and not that the abortion clinic staff are friendly, but we weren't alone. And the pain was pretty intense for me. A lot of times women, are given a drug and they can't feel it, or they're put to sleep. And the pain at the time was pretty intense, but I know it's comparatively different taking a chemical one and a
Yes.
surgical one. So, and I wanted to ask you before we go into your healing, about, the physical side effects. I know a lot of women, we've read their stories, they bled for months, or their
Oh, wow.
periods never came back normal. I mean, did you have any kind of complications like that? You're
You're
back.
back.
Okay. I bled for about a week, I would say, heavily. Yeah, really, like maybe using like 5 or 6 pads a day for a solid week. And I was like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to last? So it really was about a week of it. It did not go on 4 months, but that was definitely something that I never had to deal with.
Yeah.
And yeah, that affects your day to day, having to go to the bathroom, having to change, having to carry things with you. So it was interesting. That was a lot, I would say.
Well, let's go back to the brighter side now.
Yes.
Even though it's really incredible that Rachel's Vineyard, and I'm sure they're like that in other locations, took care of everything for you, except maybe your flight details. And I don't know if they help with that or not. But when you're in a state of trauma, when you're in a state of depression and grief and just overcome with all kinds of emotions, it's hard to make those kind of decisions. It's hard to work those things out. And man, what a testament it is to Rachel's Vineyard and to Mary Lee for having that foresight into helping make all those arrangements to make it as easy as possible. I know Rachel's Vineyard and all abortion recovery programs are confidential, they're private, they're safe. And so that's a bonus as well. It's not like, you're off in a really secluded, safe environment and nobody knows that you're there. So that's something good. So tell us what happened after you got to Houston and you started Rachel's Vineyard.
Yeah, it was, what an experience. You first enter a room of people that you don't know, and it can take a little while to kind of warm up to them. But I think all of us knowing that, there are other people in this room who are here for the same reason that I'm here, it immediately made things feel safer. And there was just an energy about it. It was more, at least for mine, it was more calm, and it seemed like, people really were, you could just kind of tell it was unspoken that people really were there who were hurting and who needed the help. So when we got there, I had a roommate, and so you had, some time to yourself to reflect on things, write things, whatever, they were having us do. But it was good to have someone else there, so you didn't feel so alone. But when I got there, we kind of just right into it. It's 3 days of, it's 3 long days of talking, listening, reading, writing, one thing. Yeah. And please feel free to redirect me if you want me to talk about something that I'm going off topic on. But really, I think the biggest thing that happened at Rachel's Vineyard that provided the most healing for me was the living scriptures that we did. Just really fully immersing yourself in the word and the actual act of healing, guiding you from that to that place. We did a few of those, and
that was very impactful for you.
Very life-changing.
Yeah, God knows how to meet us right where we're at and give us He gives us what we need right when we need it. And that's really cool. And it's different for different people, I'm sure. Either different scriptures, different experiences, but God's going to meet us right where we're at and heal us right where we need to be healed. So what would you like to say to our viewers who either may be pregnant and contemplating an abortion?
Yeah, I would say, and I don't know if everyone or anyone who's going to see this is a believer or is not, or is questioning it, I would say either way, if your first reaction is panic or fear, that is valid and that is okay. Give yourself time to feel that, but come back to yourself. Give yourself time. Do not think that this is a snap decision that you have to make. I wish that I had not reacted out of the panic and fear. I wish that I had just given myself some more time to calm down, think about it, pray, or if that's what you do. If not, talk to a trusted person, talk to a medical professional if you can, if you feel comfortable, if that's something that's possible in your situation. I just would say, again, I think, Molly, as you said earlier, that is normal to have that panic and that fear response. But when you act in that moment, you never know when you're out of that panic and fear how you're going to feel about that decision.
Yeah,
that's all I can say for my.
That's very good. And you know,
Yes.
we never ever make good choices in panic and fear. When we're in
That's right.
panic and we're fear, we never.
Mhm.
It's we're reacting to the panic and fear instead of a calm mind and a rational mind, and
Mhm.
you know, and seeking things through. You know, like you did. You know, really got a lot of information. But I'm here to tell you from my experience, and I've had all kinds of pregnancy losses. I've experienced everything as a pregnancy loss can experience. And the abortion is always the one that carries the most trauma for the longest period of time.
Wow.
And it's something you can't undo. You can't undo. You can't get that baby back, and you can't have enough children to replace that baby, you
Right.
know. But is there anything that you want to say, Mary, before we close? And
I think one of the things I was thinking, even as you were talking, Christine, and you too, Molly, was I was remembering that there was some point in my life when I was aware that any decision I made out of fear was a wrong decision. But I had never equated the decision that I made back when I had my abortion made out of fear. But even though I was afraid to go home and tell my mother, that I was pregnant. And so now I can recognize that was a decision made out of fear. So years later, when I'm recognizing I can't make a good decision if I'm afraid, that I think that's a very good word, Christine, for you to share to our listeners, with our listeners and our viewers, that to just give yourself time. And I think I've heard from other women as well, the idea that you have to rush, or that even the idea, well, you've only got so much time, you better hurry about this.
yeah,
Even feeling pressured and rushed in the decision making. But I thank you. I think that was the main thing that really struck me, just your identifying that the fear and panic were bad motivators for decision making,
Of course.
really bad foundations for a decision.
yeah. And you need to really, like Christine said, is reach out to someone that you trust, and that you trust will give you good advice. And if that advice goes against what you're feeling in your heart, don't listen to your head. Your head will steer you wrong every time. Listen to your heart, because your heart kind of motivates your soul and your moral values, you know. Christine, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I wanted to say something to you, Christine, because I can relate. When you were 12, all of my growing up years, I wanted to be a mother, and I wanted to have 10 children. And I actually could visualize raising them on a farm and having a huge farm table. And I visualized what my family was going to look like. And after having an abortion with my first pregnancy, it really damaged my maternal instincts, because I went against something that I desired all my life to do. But I just want to tell you, Christine, that you're going to be a good mother one day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And going through this healing now is going to help you avoid a lot of parenting mistakes that wounded women have when they have a child after abortion. So I just wanted to say that to you,
Yes.
that motherhood's going to be a blessing for you, and you're going to be a great mother one of these days.
Yes.
So I just want to encourage you with that.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Thank you both. I really appreciate that.
Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in and listening to More to the Story with Molly White and Mary Browning, and our special guest, Christine. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your heart with us. We hope that if you're hurting, that you will contact either operationoutcry.org or go to the Rachel's Vineyard website or call the H3 helpline number, because there is help and hope for you. Even if you're pregnant and need help, we'll help you. So thank you for tuning in. I want to thank my sponsor, Dr. Steve Hotze with Hotze Health and Wellness Center. And we pray and hope that you tune in next time to More to the Story with Molly White. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.